Hi there, my name is Nick. Today I will be talking about one of history's most important pianists. A pianist who was not only a highly successful musician, but who also helped shape world history. And at the end of the video, I'll play for you his most famous composition. At the turn of the 20th century, Ignacy Jan Paderewski was the most famous pianist in the world. In the era when the piano itself was at the height of its popularity, Paderewski was a household name. In an era when miraculous new technologies like electric lights and motor cars were dazzling the public, Paderewski was the sensation of the age. With his striking red-gold hair, Paderewski swept audiences away with his magnetic personality as much as his piano playing. His story is one of struggle and triumph. He started from nothing, overcame adversity, and through sheer determination built a career as a globe-trotting concert artist. And then, at the height of his fame, he sidestepped his career as a musician, leveraging his worldly position to promote the cause of his country's independence. And so it was that, in the aftermath of the First World War, the great pianist Paderewski became Prime Minister of Poland. Born in 1860, in a small Polish village, then part of the Russian Empire, Paderewski had a difficult upbringing. His mother died young, and when he was 4, his father was imprisoned. He was an eager musical talent who displayed a gift for improvising and composing, but his early instruction at the piano was poor. He was accepted into the Warsaw Conservatory at the age of 12, though, as he later maintained, the training he received there did little to develop his piano playing. Soon after graduating, Paderewski married, but his wife died from childbirth, and their infant son had to be left in the care of friends as the young musician struggled to make a living teaching piano. At the age of 24, fate led Paderewski to Vienna and to the studio of the great master teacher Theodor Leschetizky, who attempted to dissuade Paderewski from pursuing a concert career, saying it was too late, he was too old to build the necessary piano technique. Begrudgingly, Leschetizky accepted Paderewski as a pupil, but insisted he start from scratch. Lessons continuing for about a year, Paderewski soon ran out of money and had to leave Vienna. Never to be disheartened, he persisted with practicing, supported himself by teaching, and began giving concerts in various European centres, step by step becoming respected as a concert pianist. In 1891, at age 31, he finally got his break. His concerts in London had made a splash, and he was offered an extended tour of the United States. This was a great opportunity, but he felt unprepared, lacking the sheer amount of repertoire required to keep up such a tour. He had little choice but to practice. The tour turned out to be an immense success. Paderewski's magnetic personality proved irresistible to American audiences, and his name was made seemingly overnight. He would eventually tour the United States some 30 times, playing to sold-out houses in big and small cities alike. Eventually, he was travelling in his own private rail car with a piano on board so he could practice. That first tour was organised by a piano firm, which you might have heard of, called Steinway & Sons, still a young company at that time, which took a risk on Paderewski. His phenomenal success arguably did much to establish the reputation of the Steinway name. But while Paderewski's charisma brought glory to the pianos of Steinway, he was able to do much more for his native Poland. In his concerts, Paderewski had always showed pride in his Polish heritage, playing music by Polish composers everywhere he went. Chopin, in particular, was a mainstay of his concert programs. To many Poles, Paderewski became something of a national hero and a figurehead of the movement towards Polish independence. The Polish lands, at this time, were divided between three empires, the German, Russian and Austro-Hungarian, and many Poles lived in exile across Europe and America. Around 1910, Paderewski more formally entered the world of politics, giving speeches for the cause of Polish independence. Thanks to his charismatic ability to stir the hearts of the masses, the pianist proved himself a persuasive speaker. His connections with high society diplomats and political figures, made in the course of his concert tours, also proved an asset. Though there were a few scandals along the way, which we won't get into today, his political activities only increased after the outbreak of the First World War in 1914. Paderewski continued to speak both in public and in private, in Europe and America, and helped to found associations to support the Polish cause. According to Paderewski's own account, he was instrumental in persuading the US President Woodrow Wilson to include Polish independence as one of his famous 14 points, the diplomatic statement of principles that led to the end of the First World War. Following the armistice, Paderewski acted as a Polish representative in the Paris Peace Conference, helping to negotiate things like the borders of a new Polish state. And so it was that the great pianist Paderewski was one of the signatories on the Treaty of Versailles, that historic document which formally brought an end to the First World War and brought to life an independent Polish Republic. In 1919, he became Prime Minister of the new Polish state, acting as Minister of Foreign Affairs until December of that year. As it turned out, Paderewski's skills as an administrator were not quite up to the task of running a country, and he resigned from his exalted post after only about a year, soon returning to music. To round off an already eventful life, he would go on to star as himself in a Hollywood movie.
I think I can just about manage that.
He died in 1941, living long enough to see the rise of the Nazi Party and the consequent downfall of the Polish Republic. As a pianist, Paderewski carried forth the piano-playing traditions of the 19th century. We can get a good sense of his playing from his many recordings. He was an artist of sincerity, whose playing is emotional and captivating. Some notable features of his playing include his free approach to rhythm and his fondness for what we call arpeggiating chords. Arpeggiating is where, instead of playing a chord like a block, you play the notes separately. Arpeggiation is often marked by composers in the music, presumably in places where they want this effect. Yet, Paderewski very often arpeggiates chords when they are not so marked. A seeming liberality, but curiously, he does this even in his own compositions. While both these practices, free rhythm and arpeggiation, can be quite surprising to modern ears, accustomed as we are to a more rigid approach to interpretation, these practices were common among all pianists of Paderewski's day. But that's a topic for another video. In the film footage of Paderewski's playing, we get a sense of his charisma. His demeanour is one of elegance and confidence. By no means flamboyant, Paderewski was a master of making difficult music look easy, not in a show-off sort of way, but with dignified poise and self-assurance. While there are innumerable players out there with a surer technique who can play faster and more accurately, there are few who can really bring music to life in the way that Paderewski does. His fame during his lifetime can hardly be overstated. He was a true phenomenon. He was one of those rare pianists who could stir the hearts of listeners from all walks of life. Today, I'll play for you a modest little piece that often featured in Paderewski's concerts as an encore, his Minuet in G. It was written relatively early in his career, about 1885, as a light-hearted effort to write a piece in the style of Mozart. It quickly became a favourite with audiences. Copies of the sheet music supposedly went on to sell in the millions. Though not heard quite so often today, during his lifetime it was undoubtedly his most famous work. One contemporary writer, the music critic Henry E. Krehbiel of the New York Tribune, noted that by the mid-1890s, Paderewski's Minuet was known everywhere that the piano itself was played. Given this piece's popularity and Paderewski's subsequent rise in the world of politics, one wonders just how much of an impact this innocuous little piece has had in shaping world history. Can music really change the world?